Good morning. Happy Wednesday and happy April Fool's Day. I have to say I'm almost kind of glad I'm not teaching today because who knows what kind of pranks I might be subjected to. All right, part 2 of the story. Let's see. So yesterday we left it that they were doing a 3-legged race. Nick won, of course. He broke the camp summit record while chewing bubblegum. Meanwhile, Larry got so sick of me that he picked me up and carried me to the end. See right there. I watched Mateo and Braxton cross the tire field. They stepped slowly, Mateo whispering a steady count, up, 2, good job. They finished in the middle of the pack, but Mateo gave Braxton a high five. Time for the climbing wall, Uncle Vince said. 3 climbers at a time. Ring the bell at the top, then rappel down. Easy peasy. Braxton stared at the 30-foot wall as he stepped into the safety harness. No way, he said. Forget the bell, Mateo told him. Try going halfway, then see how you feel. Braxton took a quick breath and nodded. We started our climb, but never got close to the bell. Braxton's arms were shaking. I tried to think of an inspiring quote, something to get my friend to the top of the wall, but I had nothing. I'm going back, Connor, he said. I rappelled down with Braxton so he wouldn't feel like a total loser. Nick stepped forward. I'll show you how it's done, boys. He blew the biggest bubble I'd ever seen, then attacked the wall. He didn't just ring the bell once, he actually played jingle bells. This guy was getting under my skin. Nick won event after event. He even raced to the head of the lunch line. Why is he here? I grumbled. Nick doesn't need to learn anything about leadership. Hey, running in front isn't the same as leading, Mateo said. He fiddled with a compass dangling from a carabiner attached to his belt loop. After lunch, we gathered at the lodge for the last big test of the day. You'll race to Leadership Lake, Uncle Vince announced. Divide into teams of any size. Nick raised both hands over his head, motioning kids to join him. Team Nick, Team Nick, Team Nick. He was actually starting to chant for his own team. And it worked. Kids rushed to Nick like he was offering free candy. Uncle Vince raised one hand to quiet the crowd. I've got a trail map for team leaders. Each team must bring back a canoe paddle to prove you reached the lake. He handed Nick a map. Nick spit a massive wad of gum into it, then stuffed the map in his pocket. His team cheered. Braxton and I hadn't moved. Mateo also stood by himself. First team back gets a pizza party, Uncle Vince said. We'll take pepperoni, Nick replied. More clapping and cheering. The group stormed out of the lodge. Uncle Vince looked at Braxton and me. Are you two not joining Team Nick? Follow the guy who used the map as a gum wrapper? Braxton said. No thanks. Uncle Vince laughed. Okay then, which one of you will lead? Actually, Uncle Vince, I said, we want Mateo to lead us. Uncle Vince gave us a curious look, but he couldn't hide a small smile. Mateo stepped forward and took the map. He unfolded it on the table, pulled out his compass, and studied it carefully. What are we waiting for? He finally shouted. Mateo, Braxton, and I ran to the trailhead where Nick's group was waiting for us. Last chance to join the winners, he offered with a smirk. It depends which way you're going, Mateo replied. Nick pointed to a trampled path. It's obvious. You need a wide road to bring boats to the lake, he said. Uncle Vince walked up, put a whistle in his mouth, and blew it to start the race. "Let's go!" Nick shouted. Team Nick charged ahead. Mateo shook his head. "That route snakes through a swamp before it reaches the lake. If they try to take a shortcut, they'll come back so muddy your uncle will have to hose them down." Braxton laughed. "I'd like to see that." Mateo started a slow jog up a steep, narrow path. "Just curious," he said, "but why choose me?" "Well, because you helped me on the ropes course," I said. He grinned. "You just needed a little push." "Plus, you have your own compass," Braxton added. As we hiked, Mateo pointed out patches of poison oak that had overgrown the trail. He circled wide around them, and we followed. He showed us plants with roots that we could eat if we got lost. "How do you know this stuff?" Braxton asked. Mateo ducked under a low-hanging branch. "My dad is a forest ranger. He's taken me on trails since I was a kid." I elbowed Braxton. "I guess we picked the right guy to follow." Braxton laughed. "We're terrible leaders." "Oh, not necessarily," Mateo said. "What do you think makes a good leader?" "Leaders never quit," Braxton said, quoting Uncle Vince. "They get in front and stay in front," I added. Mateo scoffed. "Nick never quit, but he led his team way off course." Our group soon reached the lake. There were no paddles in sight. "Do you think Nick got here first?" I asked. "No chance," Mateo replied. "Hey guys," Braxton said, "I found the paddle." He pointed to a lone canoe about 50 feet offshore, then dove in and started swimming. "Way to go, Brax," Mateo shouted. We ran back to camp, Braxton's shoes squeaking with each step. Uncle Vince beamed when he saw us. "Well, what did you learn, boys?" he asked. "A good leader gets his feet wet," Braxton said. "And he cares about his teammates," Mateo added. "And most of all, a good leader knows who to follow," I said. Uncle Vince nodded. "Sounds like you've all got the mark of great leaders." About an hour later, Nick's team trudged out of the woods, looking muddy, sore, and exhausted. "How are you fellows doing?" Uncle Vince asked. "Did you learn anything about leadership?" "Yeah," someone shouted. "We are never following Nick again." The end. I hope you enjoyed that story. I will try and find another one for tomorrow. All right, see you later.